build today. I'm going to take this cube of purple heart and I'm going to turn a six-sided bowl on each side using some soft gripper jaws to turn the wood from each face. So we'll show you the gripper jaws. This is a jam chuck I've made before, which is mounted on some Axminster soft wood mounting jaws like the one I'm showing just there, and the one that's in the lathe I'm going to adapt and reshape to be able to grip the cube across the corners. So I've got a recess now into which I can put the cube of wood with the corners in between each of the cut sections of the jam chuck, and it gives a reasonable grip. It's not a fantastic grip, it could probably do with being a bit deeper, to be honest, and obviously when I can I'll be having the tailstock support up. So after a quick bit of dressing of the first face, I'm just now measuring it up and working out the diameter and profile of the hemisphere that I'm going to cut into each face. At this point in time, my plan is to try and avoid the hemispheres meeting in the middle and the whole thing falling apart on me. But as always, when you're doing a prototype, as this one is, things don't always go to plan, as you'll see a bit later on. So with the diameter of the little bowl worked out, I've now just moved the head around a bit on the headstock just to make access a bit easier, and done some scoops with the bowl gouge, and then I'm just dressing the inside with a negative rate scraper. I've made a little paper template so that I can assess the depth as I go a bit more easily rather than just using a depth gauge. So still a bit more to go here. So I finished the first bowl to the template size and sanded it all up, and then I've moved it round 90 degrees and marked the same diameter for the hemisphere on the next face, and now on with bowling that out as well. As I was doing this, I was finding that the jam chuck wasn't giving such a good grip, and every now and again I realised that the cube was slipping and I had to stop it and give it a thump to reseat it. So I think I really need to do that jam chuck a lot deeper. I persevered for a while though, and it's around about now I realised that my careful measuring of my hemisphere had gone completely wrong, because I've actually got through to the other side of the bowl on the other quadrant, and you can see a hole right the way through. So rapid time for a design change, making a positive out of a problem. There. Didn't get the geometry of his hemispheres right, so I'm going to end up with a hollowed out centre, which is not what I intended. Right, so the current situation is that I've got bored with this. I've done the one, well, that was the first one. This is the second one, and this is the third one, unfinished. This is so hard, it was horrible to do. So I've fashioned a new plywood jam chuck thing, and I've got to decide whether I'm going to bother or not, and if I do, I think what I'm going to do is do a recess and then screw wooden framing around the outside that I can then clamp it up against. I think that's an idea, and if I can be bothered, I'll film that at some time in the future. At the moment, this is where it's going. In the bin. So, been languishing in the bin for a while because it proved to be ridiculously hard. So I'm going to try and rechuck it now on the remounting jaws over here, and set it up so I can use the bowl gouge, 3/8 bowl gouge that I've just sharpened, and endeavour to get through the very hard Purple Heart without throwing it in the bin again. Gently does it with the bowl gouge as the tailstock is not providing any support and the button jaws are not the most secure, but this did turn out to be the best way of actually doing it. Nice sharp tool and clean cuts, and there was no problem at all. That Purple Heart really is like iron, but by keeping on sharpening the bowl gouge and taking steady cuts, progressively, one step at a time and one face at a time, managed to actually start getting through it. And as you can see here, we're starting to get a hole in each face as I go round each facet of the cube one at a time. Looking interesting. And then it's just a question of going around the rest of the sides, doing the same thing, rinse and repeat, checking that the dimensions are the same in each hemisphere with the guide to try and make sure that the holes that are appearing in the centre are about the same size, which wouldn't be the case if the hemisphere had actually got a different dimension. In the final bowls there are 4 holes that are appearing, and it's quite tricky at this stage to avoid the tool catching in the holes. It's balanced between speed, which you want it fast, but you can't have it fast because of the button jaws limiting it to 600 RPM. So it did require very careful tool control, rubbing the bevel and resharpening the tool regularly, because that darn Purple Heart is like a rock. Here, this one is not as deep as the others. These are all roughly the same size. So I'm going to rechuck this side and see if I can just take a little bit more out. That might be famous last words. Let's see if I can trim a little bit more out, and then it will be sanding and finishing. So instead of rechucking it, I decided to go into the finishing phase, sanding it all round with the electric drill and with a sanding arbor in the headstock. But I also resorted to some files, rasps and a bit of Dremel work just to even up the size of one or two of the holes. They didn't end up all being exactly the same size, but they ended up being pretty good. It just took a while. And there we have it, the Purple Heart showing its lovely end grain, and most of the holes fairly even. It actually turned out to be a great project, even though that wasn't exactly how I intended it to start with.